We'll call this meeting of the Erda City Council to order. It's Thursday, September 28th, 7 p.m. at the County Auditorium located at 47 South Main Street, Twilla, Utah. This meeting is in person and on Google Meets and for viewing on YouTube. We will start with the roll call. Terry Miner.
Here.
Craig Smith is here. Scott Dubay
Is also here.
We also have Councilman Martin on the phone, Attorney John Brems here, Planner Rochelle Custer, and our Recorder Jim Poole, along with members of the public.
Jess Bird is missing in action.
Jess Bird is excused for this meeting.
Thought he was hunting.
Yes. All right. Let's do a pledge of allegiance. Will you lead us in that, Terry?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that brings us right to our public comment. If there's anyone from the public who would like to speak at this time? Do we have anyone raising a hand online, Jen?
Nope, not at this time.
I move we close public comment.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, because we're all there. All right, the meeting minutes from the 19th. Is there any discussions, audits, changes?
For me.
All right, I'll move that we approve the meeting minutes from the 19th then. But I still need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Second.
All in favor of approving the meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, unanimous. Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Okay, the accounting department and finance department have been working the last couple of weeks on our audit through Larson and Company, or Dave and I think. And it's gonna be done, looks like maybe by the first part of October and stuff, so. I haven't heard anything too serious yet, but it'll be coming. Okay, for the Zion's bank deposits, from the 20th, which is just after last meeting, to the 28th, which is today, we've deposited $20,893.50. And for expenditures from checks 1172 through 1174, we had Ensign Engineering for $6,393.75. We had Twilla County for the ballots, $842. And for CVE Tech Group for our Google Workshop and Voice, $310.45 for a total of $7,546.20. But this is just the calm before the storm, because next week will be the end of the quarter, and so law enforcement, roads, all that stuff's going to be due. So just be prepared for next meeting. It'll be quite abundant. And then for the credit card, we had $274.93 charged for the hotel for the clerk for the training seminar, and then $215 training fee for the seminar, for a total of $489.93, and that was paid today. Anybody got any questions?
Are there any questions about the finances? Any discussion?
Not by me.
All right, move on then. Ordinance 2308, or land use code, Rochelle.
Thank you, Chairman and council members. We have an application, a business license for trucks, cars, and credit along SR 36 and Cimarron. This code change is not because of that. It was brought to our attention that our code is not sufficient in this category. That was rezoned to a general commercial area, which is typically where you want to see automobile sales. Currently, our table of uses only allows automobile sales within an enclosed building, period. But we have a definition in our definitions for automobile dealership, which means a retail business characterized by the selling, leasing, and maintaining an inventory of new or used automobiles, light trucks, vans, trailers, recreational vehicles, boats, motorcycles, off-highway vehicles, or other similar motorized transportation vehicles, and may provide on-site facilities for the repair and service of vehicles. So my recommendation to you is that we take out the section in the table of uses that talks about an automobile, and it specifically states, I apologize, I ran here from a conference, so I don't have what the current wording is. It talks about new or used vehicles, and then there's a separate section on RV sales and ATV sales. My recommendation is that we just call it automobile dealership, because the definition for automobile dealership encompasses all of that. And with the conditions, and these were conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission. The all repair work shall be completed within an enclosed building. Vehicles on premise that are being prepped for sale must be behind a screened fence, and all vehicle parts shall be in an enclosed building. And the Planning Commission's recommendation is that an automobile dealership should be a conditional use in all of the commercial zoning districts. So this meeting is not about the particular business license we have currently. It's about clarifying automobile dealerships for our entire city. Any questions?
So this is like Marcosian Autos and Bargain Buggies before them were illegally operating. This fixes it for all car dealerships that may want to come in.
Car dealers, RVs, ATVs.
Oh, that was gonna be my question.
But the definition covered all that, right?
Yes, yes. So that's what this does, is this fixes it all.
Yep. And then so the definition will be the new rule.
Correct. We'll just put that in the table of uses.
Works for me.
Yeah.
How about you, Cal?
Yeah, worked for me as well.
The only concern I had with the Planning Commission's recommendation was the first one, that all repair work shall be done in an enclosed building. Is that too restrictive? Do we?
Well, I think that goes to environmental too, so that it doesn't get into the dirt and all that stuff that's contained inside on the cement and on the floor.
That is true. There is some of that.
Yeah, that is. But an enclosed building doesn't necessarily have to have a concrete floor, just an enclosed building.
State would require that if
Yeah.
they were, when they received the permitting required from the state, they would require the oil water separator and.
But that was my question. Do we want to make it inside an enclosed building or allow that behind a screened area also?
I think that we should just require maybe a floor, concrete or something to keep it out of the dirt, so it doesn't affect like wells and things like that. But I don't know if it needs to be inside of an enclosed building.
So I guess the thing is that it have to contain secondary containment of some sort to capture any environmental unfriendly products.
Can we word this so that if they're doing mechanical repairs, let's see, how would we word it? So if they're working on the drivetrain or something like that, it has to be indoors. But if they're just changing a car door, they could do it outside, or they're putting a new lid on the trunk, or a new window in the,
But maybe if they're not dealing with hazardous materials, hazardous waste.
We could combine 1 and 2, that all repair work and vehicles on premise that are being prepped for sale must be behind a screen fence. We could combine those 2 together. And then any business has to follow state guidelines, so that's kind of just a given.
And I'm honest, I don't have super strong feelings either way.
Planning Commission had pretty strong feelings about that one.
But yeah, planning commission, that was, they wrestled a lot with, should everything be an enclosed building?
Mhm.
And this is what they had come up with, so. That's,
well, in that light, then, I think we probably want to follow their recommendation. If they really felt like, and discussed it, and pointed to it, and said, any repair work's gotta be done indoors.
And codes can be changed anytime. If we were to put this in place and we had an applicant that had a great system that wanted to come request that it be changed from being in an enclosed building, we can always do that as well. In my experience, it's easier to take things away than add extra conditions later, if you don't have a strong opinion on it. But we can change it to be however you would like it. You are the legislative body. It's your decision.
Well, I say we go with what the planning commission recommended. And if so there's a dealership that's coming in there. If they don't want to repair cars indoors or build a building, then they just don't offer repairs. All they do is buy and sell cars. And they don't have a mechanic shop in there. What do you think? We go with it the way it is?
And that's with the definition out of the, yeah.
How about you?
I don't know. Rochelle's right. It's very hard after a problem's there to put more conditions on it, because once it's there, it's pre-existing if you go back and change the condition. So it is easier to take something out and make it easier for an applicant later. But I also hate to see that someone would have to put up a building to do relatively simple repairs. So I guess
Now keep in mind, this is in your commercial zoning district.
yes.
This isn't in your industrial zoning district.
Well, I'll accept the motion, whatever someone wants.
Well, then, I move we accept this change to 17-5-3, comma 2.2, as recommended by the planning commission.
The ordinance 23-08.
I don't know. I'm just reading off the top of it. Yeah. That one.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
All right, the motion seconded. Any further discussion? All right, how do you vote, Kel?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
I will also vote yes. Motion is passed.
Thank you, council.
All right, a discussion of human resources and travel expenses?
Yeah, this is me.
All right.
As far as the human resources, I just think we just kind of maybe need to, now that we've been here almost 2 years, we need to kind of come up with things to, policies and procedures to how we're going to report things, and like if there's a grievance between somebody and do something. Point of contact, kind of like we got a point of contact for running the meetings. Well, we need like a point of contact to be our human resources, that if somebody got a complaint, they can go to them, and then a policy or process to deal with it. And then on the second part is travel expenses. Do we do like a resolution or ordinance just to say we'll adopt the federal per diem rates as the state?
You could, if you want to have more qualifications on that, you can. Create a whole policy if you'd like.
I don't know if you guys, well, I don't know if you had much experience with it, but like the government has a per diem rate set up, like if you go, certain counties have it already set up, and then the state has it as a whole. So like if you're going to Park City, I think it's one of the one that has its own, it says this is how much for meals and this is how much you can spend for hotels. And then if you're going to a place that isn't on the list by itself, then the state of Utah has its own average or whatever per diem, this much for everything else and this much for hotel. So then that way people know how much they can spend for food and how much they can look at a hotel, you know, not to say you can't get a 5-star, but the per diem only maybe allow you $100. And if you want to pay 200, well, 100 of that's coming out of your pocket because we're only paying for 100. So.
This had never crossed my mind.
Is the,
It's just like for Jennifer when she's going to Park City. Now she knows how much she can have for food and how much she can spend on hotels and stuff like that instead of just kind of guessing. But,
So this would need to be revised periodically as,
well, it's a
Well,
yearly deal. It revises itself yearly. I think it's October is when it usually comes out and then kicks in for the next year. So, which is all the others. I think your COLAs for like most of your stuff comes out like the middle of October type thing. So then that's when it'll kick in for the next year.
how do we establish that?
I just get John to whip something up.
But how do we establish the figures for like how, the hotel rates and the food
It's
rates?
already
It's already established.
it's already
Oh, is it?
established.
Oh,
Would you like me to prepare a draft travel policy? I can do that.
I think we ought to at least look at it, yeah.
Okay. I'll do that.
Need to decide who we want to be the HR guy. For
well,
like,
we do have one employee. Chances are I would be the most likely to offend anybody.
Well, can we hire Jennifer to be that HR person?
it can't be HR over herself. It's got to be one. Unless we
That sounds exciting. I complain about myself. Can I file a complaint? I have a very bad attitude today.
It's also the other council members, if they got a problem with somebody and they feel somebody's being unfair to them or doing something, there's got to be a person to go to kind of like you are for the city. We need one of that for the.
Yeah, I am for the code, yeah, for code enforcement. Doesn't sound like a big job. Do you want me to do it?
I don't care. I don't want to do it. How's that?
I'll be glad to do it. I like Jen. I'm pretty sure.
Like I said, it's
Any
not
problems.
not just for kids, it's for everybody.
All of our employees.
Well, all our contractors, anybody's got a problem with anybody in the city.
Oh. That's how this got figured, didn't it? Well, I might not even be here in 2 months, so why don't you assign me? I could be voted out in November.
That is a possibility.
I'll do it.
By the research I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can never go by the polls. I heard Batman say that once.
Yeah.
Polls can deceive you.
Okay,
I'll be that person.
how do you feel about that, Terry?
I can't tell you he's sitting here.
So let it be
So
written.
you've
down.
already got a problem with HR.
All right. Moving on then.
Why don't we just table that until all 5 of us are
There
here?
you go.
Okay,
There you
That
go.
was just a discussion anyway.
all
The main
right.
thing I wanted was the
Discussion
per
on it?
diem, was the per diem and stuff. That was the main.
All right. We will table this discussion for an official appointment to a later date. Council representative reports.
So, some of you know I went to the Council of Governments meeting. When was that? Was that this week or last week?
Last week.
It was last week. So the main discussion is, and I didn't know this, but there is an opportunity every year for a certain amount of sales tax and any other funds that the counties and the cities want to kick in to do road maintenance or projects within the city or the county. Grantsville, almost everybody but us and Lake Point had a project. And some of them were millions of dollars. So next year, I think we'll apply for some of that. We'll have to do some research and find out how much those projects would cost so that we can apply for that amount of money. But,
Have to be in the budget too. We can't do stuff that's not in the budget.
well, unless, this is like a grant, isn't it, Rochelle? It's like a grant, so we don't even have to have matching funds.
I thought you said we had to put our portion of our sales tax into something.
So I got an explanation on that too. So this is third quarter sales tax, a special 0.25% that the county has been squirreling away. So when I first heard about it, I thought all of our third quarter sales tax had to go to this fund, but that's not the case. This is this 0.25% sales tax that the county has been collecting for years. And then they also have some funds that are designated for projects or for roads. I never knew this, but apparently, when Sean Milne was on the county commission, he started this fund called Corridor Preservation. And it's about building expressway down the east side of the railroad tracks through Erda, down above Lake Point, around the point of the mountain and connecting up with 201. And there's funds in that part of that, well, I don't remember, and maybe you don't know, Rochelle, if it was all of those funds were gonna go to this projects or just some of it.
There's a certain percentage by state statute can be used for maintenance, but the majority of it has to be used for corridor preservation or transportation.
Okay,
So yeah, they're gonna use some of it to go towards this.
so it's not all of it, but it's some of it that's gonna be used for this.
UDOT squelched that, right?
Well,
There's 201 and.
yeah, so, and I don't know if anybody has heard about this or not, this expressway down through Erda. None of us are in favor of it. Lake Point is not in favor of it. The state is not in favor of it. So I tried to convince Lake Point that it's a dead issue because they're really concerned about it. And a cousin of mine reminded me that this was brought up in a county meeting about this corridor a couple of years back or more, where my cousin was there. And they proposed this corridor and showed the map of where it would go. And she raised her hand about her question and said, what do the landowners think of that? And I think it was Sean Milne said, they're all in favor of it. And she said, all of them? Yeah, all of them are in favor of it? Well, except for one. We haven't contacted one. They have to go right across my property, and nobody's ever said anything to me about it. So I'm assuming the plan is acquire this fund so that the county can put this road through, condemn the property, and then they'll tell me what they're doing with my property. So John, my question here is, if Lake Point's not in favor of it, and Erda is not in favor of it, and the state's not in favor of it, is there any chance that this expressway could be funded and go ahead?
Well, if the county wants to use their money, and if it's money they have authority and control over, they can use it to create the corridor.
It won't hook,
What they want to do is create a corridor before development occurs, so they don't have to take out houses and buildings.
it won't hook into 201 because the state's already gone the way they told us before. They were just gonna add another lane on
Right.
that one shoulder, which is on next year's
Right,
36.
that's further evidence that this is not an issue as far as the state's concerned, because they're just not gonna do it. It's way too expensive. But can the county condemn property?
Yes.
Is that right? Even if the city doesn't want them to, and it's in Erda City?
Yep.
So can we condemn property in another municipality?
Even though we are Erda City, we are still within Twilla County and their jurisdiction, so.
Hmm.
There's many that believe we're not.
So
part of Twilla County.
I'm in favor of using more and more of this funding every year. Let's just complete this corridor preservation
It's
fund.
not just for that, it could be used for mass transportation that we see maybe.
About trails.
Getting in,
Maybe.
Yeah, we need a report from Terry about trails,
Oh, okay.
because he had a trails meeting.
the long and the short of your thing here is getting in on, some of these grants would be a great thing.
Yeah,
Shoulders of our roads.
Yeah.
We could burn $500,000 just in Erda City, putting gravel on shoulders of our road to help preserve the asphalt that we have.
Yeah.
Uh,
yeah.
There's plenty of places where we could use improvements, so we should develop a plan and get in on that extra round of grants.
Nice to move our schedule up too, so we can get some
Yeah.
work on our roads.
Can I kind of tell you what the process I've seen occur in other counties is the cities have a public works department or somebody on public works that goes out and evaluates roads. And based upon that evaluation, they make a proposal to the COG or whatever for this quarter, what they call the quarter of the quarter, funds for these roads, and they try to share it up among the various cities. But without much of a analysis of your roads, you know, grants goes and say, well, our guys say this is a more important project than yours.
So we do have pretty good analysis, at least the county road department that we hired to do our roads. They have a rating for all of our
They have a
roads.
pavement management program, probably.
Yeah.
Someone's just gotta take that and evaluate it, and make a proposal to COG and do it early enough and do some politicking and glad handing and hopefully get some money.
Seemed like in the meeting, in the COG meeting, they were trying to help everybody a certain amount. So maybe that attitude would continue.
Well, the argument you make is we've never had any, so we ought to get more than our fair share.
There you go. We've been overlooked all these years.
All right, Terry, you had trails.
Okay, here's the vision. This is the vision. It's a Utah trail network called UTN. It's for the Utah Department of Transportation to build and maintain a network of paved trails throughout the state that connect Utahns of all ages and abilities to their destinations and communities. In order to secure a project is furthering this vision and contributing to the greater network, UDOT developed a set of eligibility principles and requirements in 3 categories: connection, safety and comfort, and feasibility. Projects must meet the listed criteria to be eligible for UTN considerations. And then this is the trails must be part of a statewide network of paved, non-motorized trails that serve regional transportation purposes. Be part of the regional or long-range transportation plan, improve connectivity to adjacent communities within a reasonable biking or walking distance, connect people to jobs, businesses, civic resources, and other high-use destinations, and close the gap in extend an existing regional facility if it would link to an existing facility. And I think Rochelle's got some other stuff that was brought up more explicit.
We drew lines on maps. They're gonna take all those maps and put them together and set out kind of a draft of where we envision regional trails would be within our different jurisdictions throughout the state. And then they'll start the low hanging fruit. You already have corridor ready. The areas and stuff.
And then this is a big one for me, but it didn't go over so well for some municipalities. It says UDOT will not require eminent domain to secure trail right of way. But there's some municipalities that said, well, that ain't us.
So they want to do that. Some municipalities want to condemn the property.
But right now, there is a section that the Tooele County, I guess, has already done. They've paved from Rogers Road all the way down to Sheep Lane.
And a few
I
years ago,
haven't seen that. But
yeah, that's relatively new. A few years ago, they fixed and widened Rabbit Lane, paved it. I can tell you, there are thousands of people a day using that trail. So,
Well, so I think it was also brought up the thing about horses, have like an 8 foot for the trail for the people and stuff like that, and then adjacent to it, another 8, but they would probably only do the paved part, and maybe the city or municipalities would have to do the gravel part. If you want to.
you would have to have that separated, wouldn't you? I mean, there'd have to be like a rail or something in between.
This is not like gonna happen next week either.
Yeah, true. I've been around.
I'll probably be gone before then.
Where are you going?
all right, planning commission's been busy. They have another full schedule. They're working on Copper Cove development agreement still. They had their next meeting, my mind just went blank. You might have to help me with this one, Rochelle. They had a work meeting on Tuesday and they're moving it forward for subdivision code.
Bring it in compliance.
Yeah, the state said you will change your subdivision code to meet this. Largely, John and Rochelle drafted a subdivision code, so they'll be voting on that most likely in their next meeting, which means they'll be coming to us shortly.
So they want us to change the subdivision code to what?
The state is requiring some changes.
You cannot require a pre-application or a concept any longer. You can offer it, but you can't require it. A preliminary plat is approved by the Administrative Land Use Authority, which we just read in as planning commission. Planning commission will do it. You can hold a public hearing at the preliminary stage, but that is the only time planning commission opted that they wanted to be able to have a planning or a public hearing. And final plat has to be approved by voting changes.
So there will be a few items coming to the planning commission over our next few meetings. And that's all I had. John has something for us for a few minutes.
I think, did anybody do the Mid-Valley Highway meetings this week?
Yeah, I was there. So, but I don't know if there's any news. I'm trying to think of something that was, they've finished their environmental impact statement. But I know Twilla's frustrated with it, as are we. But it didn't sound like they were gonna make any real changes.
It's not gonna be immediate either. It's down the
No.
road years.
Oh, there is no funding available for it yet.
For any of the phases. There's like 3 phases.
Yeah, but Twilla's mayor, and I spoke with her for quite a while. She wants to try and see if somebody can leverage, and this may have to be our legislative representatives, but can leverage doing section 3 of it before 2. It makes a lot more sense for everybody involved.
Had to take the trucks off of Main Street in Twilla and route them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the original plan was to do section 3 before section 2.
Was it?
But I can tell you a little story about Mid-Valley Highway and no funding, and meetings where landowners were all in favor, and I was sent as a representative of the landowner to say, nobody's even talked to us yet. So I've been in that very meeting. And when they say, well, don't worry about it, there's no funding, and literally 3 years later, the road exists, is
Suddenly
in
there was
place.
funding.
There, somehow funding happened, so, what they say there is or isn't,
Yeah.
it can change. All right, let's hear what John has for us.
We got a nuisance or a code enforcement issue, just want to get your direction on. There's a trucking company that's operating in an R15, or is it a RR5? And they made an application for change. And so the question is, should we enforce that violation now or wait for us to finish off what we're going to do with it?
So they've been in here and talked to us a couple of times already about this, and I think that's, as I recall those meetings, that's the direction we gave them, was that we're gonna work on, have the planning commission work on changing the codes or creating an avenue where, under certain conditions, that can operate.
Do they operate now out of compliance then?
Yes.
Well, basically, yeah, and technically, yeah.
I guess the choice is whether we enforce it or not.
So I think my position would be if suddenly this was just brought in front of us and this is the first we'd ever heard of it, then maybe, yeah, we probably need to. But the fact that they've been in and talked with us and we've been out and talked with them, I think we see what the planning commission comes up with and then see how this company can conform, and they're not the only ones. RTM is not the only company functioning in Erda, so,
They're the ones that we've been receiving complaints.
yeah.
So that it still goes back to, do we enforce our code to everybody or do we kind of decide who slides?
We don't decide who we enforce and who we don't, but we do decide if there's a plan or a process or an opportunity to work through this without bringing the heavy arm of the law down. I have another one I'm working with the fire marshal with, that's a violation. I don't think those folks realize that it's a safety and a fire code issue. So rather than,
They got 30 days, right?
rather than bring the long arm of the law, the heavy arm of the law down and say, here's your notice, this is your date, the fire marshal and I are gonna go talk to them. See what they know, see what plan they have, see if there's a way to work everything out without involving strict legal action. The best way, I think, to approach these situations is to go talk to people. Don't just send them a notice that,
Right, make them aware of it, and then they got 30 days to come within compliance or
well,
make arrangements or get a conditional use or do something.
right. right.
Instead of just doing what they're doing until we decide something.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some people I'm talking to down on, in the middle of Erda, about a repair shop. Same kind of deal. We had complaints from people in the neighborhood, so I went down and talked to them, and they didn't realize they needed a conditional use permit. So they've been working on that, but it might not happen in 30 days. For one thing, the planning commission only meets once a month for a work
Well-
meeting and once a month for a public meeting.
They meet twice a month, but to have a code written, takes some time, and then there's public notice. This has already been out and noticed for their next meeting, but that's 14 days away. Here's my take on it. We could start enforcement right now. And they have 30 days to come into compliance really from our code before we could even levy a fine or do
Or they
anything.
show progress that they're doing something about it.
So there's that 30-day process before anything changes to begin with. They have already made an application to amend our code. And it's possible within 30 days or 45 or 60 days, we have that to vote in front of us, that code of what it is. It doesn't make sense to enforce a code that we don't even know what will be in 45 days, because they've already made an amendment to change the code.
An application.
An application to amend the code and change it. So if we start doing enforcement, what happens if the code changes? The only thing slowing it down
It
now,
works with every code. So we enforce or we don't enforce. You can say that about every one of them.
correct, like I say, I give them a lot of leeway on this one because they understand that there's a problem and they've asked to have the code changed. They're not fighting it, they're not saying, no, we'll just do whatever we
It'd be
want.
nice if they could talk to their neighbors and get them to
That's,
kind
That
of,
would be nice.
yeah.
it would be nice if. all
Might not be
neighbors could
possible, but it would be nice.
Speak up a little. I have a neighbor. You know, I have
We're all,
We all live in the same.
yes, all.
The guy that, his dad, you probably know, Mr. Buss, I had to get a lawyer. I got two lawyers. I got a zoning lawyer and I got a constitutional lawyer. Because I got called a dirty white truck driver when I moved in. And he tried to tell me that there was a homeowners association. I wouldn't have spent money on the house for 5 acres if I knew that was, I would have never bought that house. But I did a lot of research and checking out with the codes, and I knew I was gonna be in compliant. I am not running a trucking company out of there. We have in Halley, you know, they're the ones that they're running dump trucks. And I just have reefer trailers, and mine are gone basically as soon as they're, I mean, I'll have my personal trailer there, but it's gonna be, I'm building an 80 by 100 shop. The economy with the current administration that we have in this country right now has put the commerce in a world of pain, and we've felt it. We have one neighbor, his house is up for sale, he's moving out. But I don't think we're so much of the problem because he can see what we're doing. All of our stuff is going to be indoors eventually. But it's like, I'm gonna have $500,000 tied up in the building I'm putting in. By the time I got, and I've already spent, I've got probably $300,000 between the building and the concrete and everything else. I still have to do the slab and have it erected. But, you know, I don't understand why you have neighbors coming over to you, and they're telling you where to park things in your yard.
Well, what it is you're in a residentially zoned and you're doing a commercial thing out of it. That's
But
the
it-
big thing.
Okay, I'll give you that, it is to an extent. But if you drive around the city of Erda, because they say commercial vehicle, we have a plumbing guy that lives one street over from us. He runs trucks out of that place every day, he's running his business. Everything that I own, it's on my, like I said, it's my personal property. It's not Mark Transport. It's Dale Mark owns that stuff. It's my personal stuff. Basically, my truck is a showpiece for my company. I don't drive it that much. Most of the time, it's gonna be locked up, it's gonna be in the building anyway, at the end of the day. I've been trying to work with everything else, you know, and then you have certain neighbors, you know, and he's stating that, oh, I'm having a hard time selling my house. Well, you know what? For one, his house, my personal opinion, this isn't what the economy is, I think he's about $500,000 over what their house is worth. The one across the street sold for me. But it's a beautiful home.
So the majority of your neighbors are okay with what you're
Yes,
doing?
matter of fact, there are neighbors. We're neighbors.
When we moved into the neighborhood, apparently the neighborhood was an HOA. When the contractor did the second phase, he didn't do the paperwork to make it an HOA. I had moved all my stuff there in a semi and parked it on the property while the house was being built. And we ended up with code enforcement out there. Apparently there's 8 people there that are original from the HOA that complain about, if I had them approach me and hand me paperwork about the HOA telling me how to do my landscaping. Because I wanted xeriscape and they wanted me to landscape
Suburbanize
the front yard. Well, they ended up making me get rid of that semi. I planned on putting stucco and rock and a eave over it and parking my tractor in there. But I got turned into code enforcement. Tooele County told me that I could file extensions. My husband works for the Army Corps of Engineers. He happened to be gone 9 months that year. My extension was 6 months. I would have had to have dealt with it myself, rented a crane, had it lifted off the wheels, hired someone to take off the stuff and set it down and have the pad and everything laid. Basically, I would have had to have scabbed it in and we wanted to do it right. And as a result, I ended up having to sell that. We were gonna have the trusses made and roof it and make it a building to park the equipment.
The bottom line is, why are these 2 individuals being harassed when these other businesses in that neighborhood
You have 5.
are doing business and no one's complaining about them? It's just these 2 people and our neighbors.
They complain.
I just got one thing. Are they in compliance or not? You're residentially zoned, right?
We have filed, and I have came to you guys and spoke with you. When we initially started this business, my husband worked for a company for 22 years. We came to this meeting and we asked, I had numerous conversations with Mr. Bird on the phone. And we also came to the meetings and we talked to you guys about this, that he wanted to start a trucking company where we were gonna have a problem. And we were told no. He left a job where he had security and vested in the company and everything and went out on his own. And we started this business. We were given our business license last year and everything was fine. And then we were since then told that no, we're not in compliance anymore. And I came to you guys and said, what do we need to do? We're not trying to do anything out of compliance. We're trying to be in compliance and we're not fighting anybody.
So you submitted the proper,
Yes,
to
yes.
to rezone your
Absolutely,
stuff to
yes.
become within compliance.
But in the meantime, ever since we broke ground on our property from day one, we have been harassed by everybody around us. And it's not just for this, it's anything that they could find, because like what Tanya mentioned about the HOA was in effect, and then it was thrown out because the second phase was not properly submitted. And the people who've been there, they want it a certain way, and by gosh, they have harassed us constantly.
We got anything in our code about HOAs?
We're not in an HOA, and we're
I'm
not
just talking about-
sorry.
I couldn't hear you say it again.
Says we got anything in our code that covers anything about HOAs?
No, HOAs are agreements between private parties and the city. It's not.
That's just between the development.
between the landowners and developer, and when the developer leaves, it's that long homeowners.
And it's not in effect when the say.
I feel this is gonna be a really lively discussion when we get to this ordinance, but we're still at
Yeah.
least a month away from that, because it needs to go through planning and zoning first. I think that,
I received a text that was very direct, and I thought how I was gonna answer it. I said, okay, we will move our trucks to the back of our property, which we did. We put them back in the backfield behind our shop that's being erected. And we've tried to help, like, by cleaning things up, trying to make it better for them. And we're trying to do everything the right way by submitting any paperwork through you guys and coming to you and doing everything and being in compliance.
That's the way I take it, that they did make an effort to come within compliance, so they are working on it as of now.
Yes.
So it's like they haven't done nothing since we've brought it up to them. They are trying to come within.
It's like two. You know, it's just like when Mr. Bus was there, his son lives next door to me, and he's got his home for sale there. He came down to the house and got my face. It's like, well, just fill out, explain to me what the problem is. He goes, well, we're HOA. And I go, no, we're not HOA. I just purchased my home. Believe me, that was one of the questions that came right up with me.
If you drive around the block and you see the house with all the metal in the yard, the reason all that metal is out there is because that guy kept getting turned in and harassed, and finally he was like, screw it.
And if you drive, you guys, I hate to interrupt you, but if you drive around the city of Erda, which I never even knew God
Still here.
was a city until last year, the meeting that I came with you guys.
In kind of city to ministry.
Yeah, and I was like, oh,
January
this is
too.
But you drive, see different things like that. All in all, down in the area, all the neighbors, we all help each other out. I mean, if somebody needs a hand,
It's over by Cal.
yeah, Kel, you have any thoughts or input on this?
A lot of it cutting in and out, guys that are far away. I can't hear a lot of it, so I'm gonna have to catch up on some of it with one of you guys. But I can tell you, I'm heavily in favor of people running businesses as long as they're not disrupting anyone else's rights. If someone's just complaining to complain, I think it's ridiculous. But I'm heavy in favor of businesses, people running their own business. I'm having a hard time seeing what's wrong here, and I think we need to do what we need to do to allow people to run a business and just live the American dream, in my opinion. So whatever we got to do to adjust ordinances to make it a little easier, I'm in favor of it. But I need to catch up with one of you guys since I can't hear everything that's going on.
Here's the short question for tonight. Do we initiate ordinance enforcement against them or allow the ordinance change to go through the process?
I think we don't force anything against them. That's my opinion. I think that we allow the change to be in process.
I agree. We ought to allow the ordinance change process to go before we do an enforcement against something we don't even know what it'll be.
Even if we knew what it would be. A few months ago, we had an issue about renting out your basement. And dozens of people living in your basement. But we didn't go out and,
Does that ever get resolved?
we're working on it the same. But I don't think we want to be a city that sees something out of place and the first thing we do is bring legal action.
My thing was, they showed an effort to come within compliance. That's good enough for me.
So the long and short answer to your question, John, is no, we don't, in my opinion.
I've heard 4 people say the same.
All right.
Anything, comments from council members? You have any comments, Cal?
No, I'm all good.
None for me.
Move we adjourn.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy your night.
Thanks.
Hey, see you, Cal.
Kept it under